the second person of the Trinity, has his glory hidden in the cloak of Jesus' humanity. And now all of a sudden, the disciples see the bursting forth of the full deity of Christ. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John and goes up to a high mountain apart from the people. And the scriptures tell us he was transfigured before them. The word in the Greek is a form of the verb metamorphio, from which we get the English word metamorphosis. You learned that word metamorphosis in school when you learned about the change, the dramatic change that takes place between a caterpillar when it becomes a butterfly. It undergoes a change of form. And the Greek word for form is morphos. And a metamorphosis is a transfiguration. The prefix trans means across. We go transcontinental, we go from one part of the land to the other. And if we go transatlantic, we go across to Europe. That prefix trans means over or across. And what happens here is that the person of Jesus moves in terms of what is visible to the eyes of his disciples. There is a transformation, a movement from one perspective to another, where for all his earthly life, the incarnate Logos, the second person of the Trinity, has his glory hidden and veiled in the cloak of Jesus' humanity. And now all of a sudden, before the eyes of the disciples, they see the bursting forth of the full deity of Christ. Now let's notice the details that Mark gives us. His clothes became shining, exceedingly white like snow, such as no launder on earth can whiten them. And so when they describe the appearance of Jesus, they talk about the change in his face and the change in his clothes. When we look at the rest of the synoptic reports of this event in the life of Jesus, they tell us that the face of Jesus shone with the brilliance and the intensity of the sun. Now, where else in Scripture do we read of someone's face shining with a blinding intensity? Obviously, when we look back in the Old Testament, in the life of Moses, we remember when Moses was on the mountain with God and he begged God for the ultimate blessed beatific vision. When he says to God, God, please show me your glory. And God denied it. He said, Moses, remember, no one can see my face and live. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll carve a niche in the rock, and I'll place you in the safety of the rock, and I will pass by and let you get an instantaneous glimpse of my backward parts, literally in the Hebrew, the hindquarters of Yahweh. But my face shall not be seen. And so the Lord passed by. And when Moses got this momentary glimpse of the backward glance of the glory of God, that experience was so intense. The glory of God, even in the backward motion, was so radiant, so refulgent, that when Moses gazed on this, his own face began to shine like the sun. Do you remember that? But beloved, when Moses' face shone with such intensity, it was the shining of the face of a creature who had been in the presence of God and whose face was now reflecting the radiance of God. That is to say, the light in the face of Moses was a reflected light. Moses' face was not the source of the light, but rather the light of God was rebounding from the face of the creature. But that's not what happens here in the Mount of Transfiguration. This intense brightness like the sun that transforms Jesus so that even his garments become whiter than snow, whiter than any fuller or any launderer can possibly make it, indicates not a reflection, but the source of the light that the disciples are now saying is coming from within Christ himself.
You've been listening to Ultimately with R.C. Sproul, a podcast from Ligonier Ministries. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe or leave a review in your favorite podcast app. For more information, visit ultimatelypodcast.com.